Hi, my name is Morgan Harper, and I chose to study Steve L. Robbins' book, What If? Short Stories to Spark Diversity Dialogue. After spending a few minutes scrolling through all the titles that were given to us, I found this one to be the most interesting. Now, I knew what diversity was going into this. However, after reading the book, I understand that diversity is literally something that relates to everything you can do in your lifetime. Now, especially going through the course and learning all the foundations of business, I can also see how important diversity is in the workplace. We studied many topics in business, including, economics, marketing, finance, management, things like this. And as I'm going through and watching these lectures, I can see how much Steve L. Robbins' book actually relates to business. Steve L. Robbins does an excellent job laying out all these types of situations and scenarios that make you understand why you need to experience diversity and why you need to accept and adapt your surroundings. Now, for example, in marketing, diversity is something that is essential in marketing to be successful. Now, you might be wondering why. Well, because in marketing, you're trying to get your product out to that certain audience. Well, with diversity, it helps to know who you're trying to reach. If, say you're trying to reach, a different group than you yourself may be associated with, then it helps to open up, understand what makes them different, understand where they're coming from, and you can better market your product to them. Another aspect of business that diversity plays heavily in would be management. It is essential to understand diversity when you're in a management position or you're dealing with a manager. Not everyone comes from the same background or from the same culture, so it's important to understand why people do the things they do and honestly why they might feel the way they do about things that happen in the workplace. A manager who can adapt his workplace to his employees to be best suited is honestly, in my opinion, a great manager. Employees who are working, if they're not happy, then why, things aren't going to run nearly as smooth. Understanding diversity and accepting it in everything that you do is something that is literally essential to being successful. Now, Steve L. Robbins covers many topics throughout his book. In fact, my favorite was one of the short stories he talked about where he had a man who wanted to bring rainbow trout into the pond in his front yard for his kids to fish for. Now, he called up a company and asked them to deliver the rainbow trout. And he said, I have this size pond, I have these other fish living in it. What do I need to do to make sure these rainbow trout can survive? The man on the other line told him, you need to make sure there's more oxygen, and you also need to put in some logs so that the trout have places to hide so they can adapt. Well, the man said, okay, no problem. He went back home and he released the trout after receiving them into his pond, and he simply disregarded the fact that he needed to set up the aerator, he needed to put these logs in to help these rainbow trout adapt. Simply over time, he continued to ignore their needs, and the rainbow trout ended up dying out. Steve L. Robbins uses this example to show us that we need to incorporate everybody's differences and everybody's needs into our pond, as he says, into our workplace, into our groups. It is essential that everybody feels at home. Now, I can incorporate this into my own life. While I was in high school, everybody deals with cliques and, things like this. However, I went to a high school that was very stuck on cliques. We didn't interact with each other outside of our groups, things like this. It wasn't until we reached a horrible tragedy where one of my good friends actually committed suicide that our clique started almost opening up and we started to be there for each other. Now, although it took a horrible tragedy, it truly opened up my surroundings all around me. My high school became a unit, and we started operating together to get through this and to, make sense out of all the madness. Now, although it was such a hard time in my life, I honestly felt like we had worked so much better, and I don't think that we would have been able to make it through had we just stuck to ourselves and not, learned about each other and depended on each other, really. This is a prime example of diversity. It shows how, we were operating in our small, tight-knit groups, but once we opened up, things worked so much better and so much smoother. This is, a prime example of what Steve L. Robbins is talking about in his pond example. So I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and thank you very much. I also thoroughly enjoyed this class. Thanks.